You are listening to the IFH Podcast Network. For more amazing filmmaking and screenwriting podcasts, just go to ifhpodcastnetwork.com.
Hey everyone, thank you so much for hitting that play button. This is another episode of the Dave Bullis Podcast. It's very early in the morning when I'm recording this, so I'm talking a little softer right now. Again, if you go to davebullis.com, the pre-show notes, I have a ton of free stuff, including a free coupon for backstage for a free basic casting call, and the link to the filmmakers group on Facebook for this podcast. A couple people have been asking me about it, and it's all there in the show notes. And slowly but surely, I've been building the group up, and the group's different because I don't allow any crowdfunding posts. And everything has to be constructive. So it's actually for people who want to get better and grow and not just be part of a group and then get hit with crowdfunding campaigns. I get it, everybody. And I actually even mentioned this on Twitter with a tweet that resonated with a lot of people. I know we want to see all of our work out there and all that, but just bombarding people with it and spamming people and tagging people and it never really does anything. So this whole business is about relationships. So I'm trying to consistently, build those relationships up. And that's what you should be thinking about too, is how to build a relationship up rather than just trying to sort of just spam people that you don't know with stuff. And just continuing along. Again, one more thing before I get to today's episode. I want to say a very, very sad rest in peace to Chad Armstrong. Chad passed away on Sunday, December the 17th. Chad and I met because of this podcast. He was making his film De Simone, and unfortunately he never got to finish it. Chad got sick earlier this year, like really sick, and now he actually passed away about 2 weeks ago. So I want to wish him, his family, and his wife Jamie, a very, very everything, the best wishes. And when she is planning a memorial, and when it's announced, I will post it on here. And again, I just very, very sad to hear this news. Chad was a good guy, and I wish his family the best during this difficult time. But just moving on to something a little more positive. If you have any 2018 goals, please let me know what they are. I'm actually shaping up my own 2018 goals as well. And feel free to post them in the show notes, tweet them at me, whatever you want to do, because I'm trying to get a lot pieced together for 2018. I'm trying to compete with Alex Ferrari, so which is I think is almost an impossible task, but I'm gonna try my best. On this episode of the Dave Bullis Podcast, I have two brothers who started their careers in video production 15 years ago as kids, making home videos in their family's backyard. One does a lot of the producing, one does a lot of the cinematography, and that's a good team to have. Their credits include producer and first assistant director for the feature film Apple of My Eye, starring Burt, Reynolds, and Amy Smart. And they also teach a hell of a lot of awesome seminars about making your first film for a few $1,000, $2,000. And I linked to some of those in the show notes, by the way, as they're on the YouTube channel. This is episode 197 with guests Brian and Jake Jalbert, the Jalbert Brothers.
You're listening to the Dave Bullis Podcast.
So I'm gonna take it back a little bit. The first time we started going full time was when we started actually Jake with an entertainment company called Iris Entertainment. That was kind of like the first inkling of it. And Jake's actually does video full time. I don't. I have a construction company, so therefore I'm doing that and I'm doing this at the same time. So Jake actually is the one more full time. He does video full time, editing, all that good stuff. But I would say back in 2008 or 9?
2009, we started a company, called Iris Entertainment, where there was 4 of us. I did video. There's, some guys did DJ and photography. But really, what I think the question you're really asking is, when do we dive in and start realizing that we could actually maybe help some people, and because we've been through a couple projects and different things, and from the Fugal Filmmaker and looking at people talking to different filmmakers, you hear different stories, and it's like, if you just knew this, I think this would help you. And that pretty much started, I would say, January.
Yeah,
so
January.
We've been doing it about a year.
Yeah, and the thing about us too, man, is it's not about really teaching per se in the typical way of saying, hey, this is the way you should do something, but it's more of documenting our journey per se, what we're doing, some of the things that helped us, and
Sharing.
maybe some of the mistakes that we've made, and try to do options. See, the problem I see is there's all these old ideals going on, right, within the film community and the film ways of doing things. Nobody's really, I shouldn't say nobody's doing it, but people need to start experimenting. There's new ways of doing things. There's ultimately going to be new people that are going to be coming out and making it in those new ways. So figuring it out, whether it's making episodic and going and putting on Facebook, not Facebook Live, but they got Facebook Watch now. And there's so many different avenues that we need to start, I think, really opening up to and figuring out how to make it work for the film community, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And you mentioned Facebook too, because with all the ways of distribution and stuff now, you have to take into account all the social media aspects, and then they all got into video now. And now, I mean, this is kind of sort of getting away from what we're talking about in a way, but I just saw that WWE is going to start doing live events on Facebook. And which is what I thought was going to happen, where you're going to start seeing like TV shows and more sports and stuff like that. They're not going to count on you for Nielsen ratings and watching it through your TV. They're going to count on you watching it on your phone through Facebook.
Well, if you think about it, they're going to miss the boat if they don't. It's like it is the thing. You know what I'm saying? It is the thing.
Like I don't know if you listen to the Gary Vee.
Oh yeah.
But if you really listen to those guys, and the thing about film community is you can't get stuck in the film community ways. What are other people doing, and how can we make that work? Gary Vee likes to say, take advantage of the situation that's going on and really see where the attention is. And like where are people eyeballs? It's on Facebook. It's on the social media. It's not in the theaters like it used to be. Now, don't get me wrong. Theaters will always be there, and theaters are great. And, I'd love to have my movie, I've had a movie played in theater, but it was, we four-walled it. But if you actually having a company get it there and having a wide release, that's phenomenal. But that's not the only way, and that's not the only way to make it work. It's figuring out how to make it work, I feel.
Yeah, exactly. And as we talk about doing this like full time, just to take a step back, that's sort of the crux, isn't it? That's sort of the big question that a lot of filmmakers have, whether they're 20s or 30s or 40s or what have you. It's how do I become a full-time filmmaker? How do I make my movie while at the same time working a day job so I don't go crazy trying to do both? And so you've actually started to do that. So like, what were some of the steps you took though to sort of just say, I don't want to work in an office or do whatever. I want to go around and shoot video. I mean, did you start going around to small businesses and shooting commercials and stuff like that?
Well, I went out honestly, and was just we filmed as little kids, and we in the backyard, and 2009 I just bought a camera and just started filming stuff. And the biggest thing I would say to become full time, being a filmmaker, is just start making stuff. So learn how to run camera, learn how to run sound. A lot of people don't want to learn these things; they want to just direct. To get a directing job like that is, it's not. It's just not. You have to learn skills. If you can build skills within camera, okay, you can make money. People will pay you. So, you just hit everybody up. You film stuff for free. You film tons of stuff. You get better and better. You keep getting better. There's Craigslist, there's Facebook. You just post your videos that you do on, and people just start reaching out to you. Say, oh, you become the video guy in your community. So now everybody knows me. You know what I'm saying? He does video. He shoots weddings. He shoots real estate videos. He shoots film. And you just become that guy, and work just starts coming in. For me, it was like I was a server, so my job was serving and then building my business on the side, video business. And it took about 5 or 6 years. So for me, it took about 6 years to build that, to be full time, to where, you know, me and Brian, we've never liked sitting at a desk. We've never really done that. So we work for ourselves. So, I mean, especially Brian, he won't work for nobody. You know, he works for himself, and he does a great job. And he's always managed, and, you know, he kind of took the role as the producer because he's always managed, and he's always kind of put things together and, you know, knew how to deal with the tough situations that maybe I didn't know how to do, you know?
And I think that's the key. Okay, so going full time for a filmmaker is, what are you actually doing? Like, do you want to be a director? Like Jake said, learn to run camera. You know, I know a guy that's in our area who does film full time, and he started out in sound, right? He bought some sound gear, started doing stuff for free to get his reel up. Now he's known as the sound guy, and then just recently direct a movie. So there's ways in. You just have to have that option in your brain looking for those other ways in. Like when I went and I ended up being a first AD and a co-producer for the Apple of My Eye movie, right? That wasn't by accident. And most people would say, oh, well, you got to start as a PA and you got to work your way up. Well, you know, like Jay said, I don't like working for people. So I did that for certain reasons, because I wanted to work with Burt Reynolds. I wanted to work with Amy Smart. You know, I wanted that credit there. But I was able to jump a bunch of steps by building a network of people and not settling for a lower position per se. You know, yeah, I was a co-producer and first AD. Normally I like to run lead. But for that case scenario, I made exceptions and went and did it. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's ultimately what it is. Like Jason, building skills, you know?
And to touch on that just super quick, I know we're moving on, but in the worst, you know, worst comes to worst, you've built these skills that you have forever. And that's where now I can do video and I can make money and I can work my way into the industry where I want to be. Building skills, sales skills, marketing skills. We're doing it all because that's what it takes now, man. That's what it takes, I believe.
Yeah, it's like what Robert Rodriguez says. You know, if you have the talent plus the know-how, you're unstoppable. Which means, and by that he means knowing the technology, how to use it, and then also being able to be creative. You know, you're unstoppable then, because you don't have to, depend on a lot of different people, because you've built all these skills up. And just to take a step back to what you were just saying, Brian, I completely get where you're coming from, man. You don't want to work for anybody else. I trust me, man. I get that so much, because I used to get offers all the time to produce other people's movies, and I would just say no. And when the people would ask why, I would say, because I want to make my stuff. I don't want to make your stuff.
Isn't that
It's funny?
It is funny, because if we got offered to maybe direct a big movie, we'd probably turn it down, because it's just like we just want to do what we want to do. And for us, it's doing our own projects, building our own empire, per se, I guess.
Yeah, and you want to people to make your stuff, because we're only on this earth for what maybe 80 years, 90 years, yes. I don't know. At the rate I'm going, I probably have about 3 more years. So, anyways, but
hey, come on, you got more than that.
Man, I tell you, some days I really wonder anymore. But anyways, no, it's all jokes, everybody. I'm not really like dying or anything. But just as we talk about making all these movies and stuff like that, you guys have a piece of advice that you gave. And by the way, you guys doing Facebook video, like promotions and Facebook videos, live chats, that's all genius marketing, by the way. So that's huge, and I don't see any other filmmaker, and I'm friends with a ton of filmmakers, believe me, I don't see any of them doing that stuff. I think you guys are really like ahead of the curve in doing that type of sort of, you're talking to your crowd, right? Directly. You're talking to the people that like your Facebook page. You're talking to the people inside the Frugal Filmmaker page, and you're talking to them directly, and it becomes it's basically what I think that is, by the way, is what Google Hangout was trying to be, but they just couldn't get it right, and Facebook just copied it and just said, hey, you know what, we can do it better anyway.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah, it's just seeing around corners. It's seeing around corners before anybody else, and that's how most people excel further. That's how Robert Rodriguez did,
Yeah, and so one of those video chats, you guys mentioned making a movie for $1,000, which I, by the way, think is terrific advice, because I have seen too many people, and I'm sure you have too, where they want to make a movie, and whether they're a first-time filmmaker or maybe they made a few shorts, and all of a sudden they're trying to either raise like $10,000, $50,000, $100,000 or more to make a film, and they don't have the experience to really utilize that budget. You know what I mean? And so they end up spending money on the wrong things, or they just completely end up just destroying the whole budget because they don't know how to handle it.
Yeah, I agree 100%, man. Just to put it in perspective, too, we went to the AFM, right? So we're there, and we got a buddy there, and then we met this other gentleman. So there's two different budgets, I should say, here. One was under 10,000. I'm not going to say the number because it's around where we're at, what we're talking about, but I don't want to completely throw it out there. So under 10,000, and then this other gentleman made his for around 500,000. Okay, and the two different comparisons is crazy. The other guy that made it for 5 had no experience, didn't get the right talent on board to make it happen. Okay, because it was his first time, and he actually blew money that was kind of an inheritance. So the problem is he could have took that, made even a $20,000 movie and did so much better with it, versus the guy that made it under 10 got the sales agents, got it released, and is gonna get it released in theaters. So it's realizing that take your first one, give yourself a budget of $1,000 to $3,000, because we could all work for a year and save that. Okay, have a script that's simplistic. It may not be your ultimate script, but have it creative. Everybody talks about being creative, but nobody's really creative. They throw money at it. Don't throw money at your problem. Be creative with it. So if you do make a mistake and you screw up on your first one,
you will screw up.
You will. If you make that mistake and you screw up, at least it's not somebody's 100,000s that they gave you, or you raised through your family, and you went to all your uncles and your parents and everybody, and then you raised 50 grand, and then you don't get the right, or you get a name on the box that's maybe diluted because you didn't know his name was diluted, and you can't sell it because they already got their movie for the year that has that actor in it. You know what I'm saying? So it's having an understanding of the market, what's going on, what's your budget, keep it simplistic, be creative, and you might end up with a winner, or you might end up with a dud, but at least you did it, and you got experience.
Or it might take you 20 years. You just don't know. But the biggest holdup I think filmmakers have is they think they need, especially new ones that don't know much about it, they think they need millions or 50,000. Like, you don't. You just need experience. So go one location, one actor, write a script, and just go make a movie for $1,000. And we get a lot of flack for that. People don't like that. Half the people like it, half the people don't like it. But it is what it is, and it's getting those kids that wouldn't know what to do, to give them some hope that, oh, I can go actually make a film and maybe meet a connection that leads me to this door, to that door. So it's opening doors. Don't sit around and wait for the 50,000. Just go make it for 1,000, and then eventually that 50,000 will come knocking at your door.
Money. You'll get the money when it's ready, I feel.
It's also when people look, like, I'm sure every filmmaker in one way or another wants to emulate, the people that they look up to as their heroes. The problem is sometimes, let's just use Christopher Nolan as an example. If we wanted to emulate him, we couldn't do Inception, because what was that, like 100 million, 150 million? But if we looked at Following, and I don't know if you guys have ever seen Following, it's actually a really cool movie that Christopher Nolan shot, and it didn't cost him a lot of money at all. And it really and then that's what set him up to make Memento, which was what he was trying to make to begin with, but he couldn't make it because he couldn't get the budget, so he made Following instead.
Makes sense. He put his ultimate script on the back burner to get one done and show what he can do. I think that's the key. Show what you can do. Like, if you can't, people think if you get money, you're going to make a great film. And don't get me wrong, there's people that if you hire the right people in every spot, and you're the director, and you actually don't have the ego, and you're able to listen to what everybody's saying and adjust to the situation, and you got the money, yeah, go ahead. You know what I mean? You'll have people backing you up, and you'll learn a lot doing it. But for us that don't have that, we don't have the connections, we don't have the big bucks, and we weren't able to raise the money, what do? Do you sit around? No. You got to get off your ass you got to go make something. I mean, and that's just what we did, and that's why we talk like that, because we're like, dude, we made our first movie on $3,000. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and you know, I think you also said it too, Bri, or maybe it was you, Jake, on one of those Facebook chats. You know, you have to show what you can do for nothing, because anybody can spend money, and that's so true. I mean, that kind of hit me, because I'm sitting there going, you know what, that's the truth. You have to be able to show that you can not only take, you know, maybe your cell phone or a lower grade camera that maybe isn't 4K or whatever, right? But you can make something, but you have to be able to show you did the hustle or whatever, because you want people to look at that movie and say, hey, Jake and Brian, how the hell did you guys shoot this movie? And then you tell them, oh, we did it for, you know, $50 or $100 or whatever, or $1,000. And they go, how the hell did you do that for that little amount of money?
I mean, how could you not do it for that kind of money? like phones are almost like the 4K thing. Like, if you have the budget, cool. But if you're trying to shoot something super high quality, but you don't know what you're doing, it just looks really bad. Like, you have a better chance of using a phone and making it as it's a phone and shooting something that's really super creative. That's more interesting to me, and something that you could possibly maybe release on Facebook and build a name for yourself. You know, that would work so much better, I feel, than trying to polish something when it's like it won't look right trying to polish something with something that's not polishable. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, I mean, that makes perfect sense, because, and you know, just as a food for thought type of experiment, if somebody listening to this, what advice would you give them if they said they wanted to make a movie this weekend, just as like a short film, or not even this weekend, but like, you know what I mean, like actually planning something? You know, would you say utilize like the living room that you have right now, or your house you live in right now, or and then just, you know, film on your phone, something like that, just to sort of get your get your feet under you as a filmmaker, and then just sort of go from, and then just see what you made, and then sort of go from there?
All right, so let's put in perspective, like me and Brian are going to make a film. What do we have access to? Right now, we're in my apartment. Okay, we know we have our apartment. We know we have each other. We can work with each other. What cameras do we have? Do we know anybody with cameras? Do we know somebody that can run a camera? If we don't, you know what? Let's just have fun and maybe use our phone and actually create something on our phone. We have Brian's daughter here. Maybe she can act in it, you know? So you have to just utilize what you have. Don't try to like write what you want, because right now it's not about what you want. It's about what you have if you don't have a lot. So that's what I would say. I mean, what do you think, Brian?
Yeah, and keep it simplistic. Like, you know, like Jake said, you know, you get one location. Like our first movie, we did in 2 locations, and the intro scene was maybe like 5 minutes, and then the rest of it was in one location. It was in a house, and it was a slasher. You know, it is what it is. It's not perfect, but it's ours, and we made it, and we released it ourselves, and you know, we got a little bit of a name talent on it, and we had fun with it, and we learned a lot. So I suggest that. Yeah, look at what you got. What do you have access to? Be creative and have some fun with it.
Yeah,
you know,
I would focus on more what you have around, and then what you, because most people focus on like, oh, I don't have a camera, or I just don't have this, or I don't have that. Like, you have a phone because you're obviously watching our lives, or you're watching stuff on a phone. So a phone's good enough. I mean, just maybe spend the money on a good sound.
Yeah,
because I think that's key. Yeah, good sound, and then maybe the phone quality would look. It would be interesting if you can come up with something clever. I can't tell people what to come up with, but coming up with something cool you could do some damage with something like that, I think, because that's where it is now. It's all phone, and people are going live. So, you know, we might do something like that. You know, eventually. Someone better do it soon, because it's the new. It is what it is right now. So to capitalize on doing someone maybe Snapchatting all day would be cool. I would more or less watch that than trying to watch a drama or something. Like, that is the thing. It already has a
built-in fan base.
It has a marketability.
It's marketable.
You can say, this is my Snapchat movie. I'd be like, oh, let me check. That's different. So I would think outside the box if you really want to make something that's going to leave an impression. If you just want to go make something, just go make it. But you know.
Did you guys see the that movie? It was like it was a short film where it took place all within a person texting her friends. It was just basically the actual they screen capped her phone, and the whole entire movie was literally, you just saw her the screen of her phone as she was texting people back and forth.
I did not see that. I'd love to see that. Actually,
It's great.
That's an awesome idea.
I mean, that's what it is. That's what it is. Like we wanted to make something, and we came up with what do we have? I have a C100, and we want to do this show, a TV show, called Haunted Tours that we're putting out actually next year, next month. And we kept it very simple, very simple.
It's very dark, very real. It's just us.
It didn't take a bunch of money.
Yeah, we go in there and we investigate locations. Now, we're not the investigators. We got other people on board for that. We were able to shoot 5 episodes. You know what I mean? So it's just creating. I mean, that's the biggest thing. Once you create, you'll get better, and you'll learn from it, and you'll make mistakes, and then you can create again. And you keep creating, and before you know it, I mean, you're doing it and getting paid to do it.
If we didn't go live on Monday, you would have never seen us, and you would have never, we might have not been on your podcast, And for us, this could lead us somewhere. This could lead us somewhere good, or you just don't know. You just gotta do it. I would say just do it.
Yeah, you never know what door you open and where it's going to lead into. I found that out too, because even starting this podcast, for instance, has led to so many doors being opened that I wouldn't even have thought about, when I started this, 3 years ago or whatever the hell it's been. But I mean, it's just been a lot of interesting stuff happening. And again, I mean, even when I've done like my stuff around the area in this Philly area, just doing things, you sort of become, I don't want to use that word, an attraction, but you know what I mean? It's kind of like that book, The Secret, where you kind of like attract things, you know what I mean? Where it's like people see you actually doing stuff, and all of a sudden they go, oh, I want to talk to that person, because they're not just talking about it, they're actually doing it. And I remember, I forget who it was who gave me this advice when I started years ago, but he said that if you actually make something, you're not normal. Normal is sitting on your couch talking about making something.
That's so true, man.
Yeah, it's just doing, bro. It's just doing.
Yeah, and so and again, I love that advice, by the way. Just finding out what you have instead of thinking about the negative, which is what you don't have. You're thinking about the positive, which is what you do have, and you do have access to. And sometimes when people start brainstorming things like that, they start getting bigger ideas. You know what I mean? They start thinking, oh, you know what? I forgot I had access to this, or hey, you know what? We can go down to the park and shoot this scene because it's a public park, and we can go off to the side there, and stuff like that, where you start actually working and stuff starts flowing a little better.
Yeah, I mean, you get so much. The thing is, like we said earlier, building your skills, because you get so much knowledge of how is. And then one thing to do too is go on a couple sets that are local that got some name talent on, and learn, watch how they operate, and then you can help operate your set like that, So I mean, that's ultimately too just watching, learning.
It's getting in the mix, When we do those lives, we get in the mix. It's like we're online networking with other filmmakers, sharing our advice, hoping to get other advice back, because we're always learning. The key is to always learn. We like to mix filmmaking with business, because it is ultimately a business. And if you don't understand that part of it, you have to either get somebody who understands it, or I think you'll be doomed unless you're super creative that someone just grabs you up. I think nowadays, you need to know the whole aspect of it. You need to know business, sales, marketing. It's all relevant now. You need to know it.
Because the biggest thing, too, if you look at it, like when Robert Rodriguez made it and Quentin Tarantino, it was a different era. Like, it was a different time. You know what I mean? So now it's a different time. So who's going to be those guys that break out through a new technology or a new way, and they're reinventing – not reinventing the wheel, but because if you look at it, everything that we're doing, like right now, this is like radio, when we're on Facebook Live, that's like TV, but it's just a different way of bringing it to an audience. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's the biggest thing is finding out how to do it and capitalize on it and see what happens. That's all we try to do.
Yeah, that's a good point, by the way, because I mentioned that too before in past episodes. You had the 90s, and you have Tarantino and Smith and Rodriguez. They all came up, and they sort of became the new celebrity director, replacing the ones in the 80s, like your Carpenter, and you have all those directors. And you have the 70s directors like Spielberg, and Scorsese, but what happens is with today, you don't really see that celebrity director anymore. You don't really see that, and you kind of look at to see what people are really making films from the next generation. You see like, okay, Damien Chazelle, James Wan, you have guys like that, but you're like, but they're not really that celebrity director type where people would notice them unless they're in the business like us, who would notice, who would say, oh, that's them. You know what I mean? And that's why I kind of think that if you look towards like what YouTube is doing, if you look at the top YouTubers, I mean, you've got like PewDiePie, you've got what's that other guy's name, Logan Paul, you got all those guys, and they're just doing like skit stuff. And I'm always wondering if you had somebody like that who actually made short films or something like that, who was actually a celebrity of that level on a particular social media channel, they could capitalize on it and have almost 100% of the marketplace.
Yeah, I agree so much too. Like, just nowadays, they don't want to be celebrities or stars. They want to be YouTubers. It's like you said. You know who I'm surprised who's never? I don't think I've ever seen him do a feature. Is Ryan from Film Riot. I think he has like one of the biggest audiences or a good audience of people to actually make something really cool like a feature and actually get some buzz behind it.
Yeah, I know Ryan Koo from No Film School. He's been making his for a while. But yeah, I know a lot of these websites and stuff. You kind of wonder why they don't have somebody try to capitalize on that.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know. But I agree with you 100%, man. I think somebody, somebody's got to be that breakout and, the new way of doing it. I think it's experimenting.
I think most of the filmmakers get caught up in the old ways like we were just talking about. So if you hone in and you capitalize on what is now, which is social media, I think you will win.
Yeah, and also too with social media, that's how you pre-sell your crowdfunding campaign. That's how you get you meet other filmmakers, you network. Because I always tell people, and I didn't even ask if you guys went to film school, but I mean that's what I tell people because I've actually worked at a college, and I've actually I've graduated from college too, and it's just like nowadays. I would if I was graduating from high school, I wouldn't even bother with it. I would learn on Udemy and network wherever I need to. Go to meetup.com, look at meetups in my area. I'd go on to Twitter or LinkedIn. I go to YouTube. I mean, you know what I mean? It's so many avenues. And I'm like, why would you spend $200,000 to go to college? I mean, you know what I mean? It just doesn't seem to make any sense to me.
No, I mean, to be honest with you, we're both high school dropouts, man. I dropped out at 15. I just never liked, I guess you could say I'm just kind of a rebel, dude. I just never liked the system. I've always kind of liked to go my own way. And I think that's what filmmakers are missing nowadays too, is go your own way. Like, I know everybody wants to go to the theater and you want to get a distribution deal with Sony and all this shit. Well, how can we capitalize on what's going on?
They'll come,
they'll come knocking at you when you got something hot. So if you can make it hot yourself, like that's ultimately that's all it is. Like people, if you get a name talent in your movie like Tom Cruise, you're just helping out with less marketing in the back end. You know what I mean? So do a movie. If you're going to get a budget, you do a movie. Say you do one on $20,000, shoot it on 10, and then use the other 10 for marketing and use it and get it in a genre that sells without name talent. You know what I mean? So I think it's being creative and trying different things,
Yeah, and you know what? The whole idea of college, too, just to go back to that real quick, it's about education. Like we said about learning skills, you even mentioned you could go on to other crews and stuff like that, other sets in the area, and learn these same skills rather than paying money. I mean, I had a friend of mine. He actually went to NYU, I think it was, or NY Film School, and he actually ended up the senior thesis project, and this is where he dropped out and said, what the hell is the point of this? He actually said the top 5 projects were chosen, and then you had to work on that person's project. And he said, so I'm going to be paying a couple $1,000s to sit here and hold a boom pole for somebody else. Like, what the hell is this?
That's crazy. You're better off taking, like we said, take 1,000 to 3,000, fuck film school, and go make a feature. That's your film school.
School is a business. They want your money.
The university is just a business in general. I feel, to be honest with you, I feel like all school in general, unless it's to be like a doctor or a lawyer and things like that, it's all there in place as a business, and I understand it. Some people learn that way, but me personally, I don't learn like that. Like, I like to get my hands dirty. I like to get in there. Jake's the same way. We learn by doing, not so much like reading a book, maybe that's because we're dropouts and we're not very smart. We learn a different way. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, we learn a lot more now than we ever have. We went to the 10X Growth Con early this year. We went to the AFM. So we're always getting knowledge and trying to find different mentors and things like that. And that's key, is finding people who have already done it and walked that path.
And then at the same time, too, maybe we don't have to follow their path, because I think in filmmaking, it's one of those things where if you talk to everybody that's made it, there's usually like it's a different path for the most part. Like, they knew a friend of a friend, and then they did something and they directed it, and then it got picked up. Or, they had a script, and then like in Quentin's case, he had a friend that knew Harvey Keitel, and they liked the script, and he was a writer at first. And so, I mean, I think everybody's story is going to be different, but it's finding your story. Like, how are you going to make it? And the only way you know that story is by just going on that journey and figuring it out as you go, I feel. Look at what other people have done, take it in for yourself, adjust with it, and see how it can work for you. Because nobody can tell you how to do something, because you're going to have your own ways of thinking, I feel,
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned GrowthCon, by the way. So I wanted to ask you about your impressions of the 10X GrowthCon. Actually, and a side note, I'm actually talking to Grant Cardone to have him come on this podcast. So it's kind of interesting we tie this in. But so you guys went through the 10X conference earlier this year. So what were some of your impressions you took away from it?
I loved it. I mean, the biggest thing I learned was these guys that make it successfully, they just do it, and they believed in themselves enough, and they took some risk and calculated risk, and they just went for it. And sometimes you failed, but it was not so much of a failure as it is of a learning curve, or that, hey, that didn't work, but that worked in it, so let me try that with this, So, I mean, that's one of the biggest things we learned, and that I learned. And one good thing is networking, man. I mean, we met a really good connection. One of the speakers there, that was the only guy that was a TV guy. We met there because we just went and took a picture with him, talked to him, and now we've got a direct access to television. So it's just being present,
And we put a lot on the line. We spent a lot of money. So I would say, we just went and invested in ourselves. Same with AFM. We spent a lot of money, and that's the only way. That's the only way.
And also AFM, what was your impression of that? Because I know you mentioned Jason Brubaker. He's a mutual friend of both of ours. He's actually been on the podcast before as well. But I know he usually goes to AFM. So what were some of your impressions from this year's AFM?
I like the AFM. It's the old way of doing things, to where you're meeting with buyers and you're meeting with filmmakers and things like that. And I think it's great for networking. I met like 50 connections while I was there. I met a lot of buyers. We didn't do any deal. We ended up not doing a deal with some of our stuff. But the point of it was getting our feet wet within where we ultimately want to be, and that's as a distributor and studio, to be able to produce, be able to distribute, and be able to get something out there to buyers, or whether it's self-distribution in whatever way. But I love the AFM, man. Learned a lot.
And I would say if you're not willing to take big risks, then it's going to be super hard for you. Like, we took a big risk. We went we didn't go as attendees. We went as exhibitors. So we had like a booth, and we had about like 6 or 8 movies that we took with us. And just did it.
So, like, what were some of the? Did you get a lot of feedback on those movies?
Yeah, we realize what is good, what people want. I mean, you spend years on this movie. You love this movie. This is your baby, right? And you're like, hey, all right, I'm going to show you this trailer, and you don't tell them, they don't know you made it. You're just like, all right, here it goes. They're like, No, not like that. So it's like, it's not about how good you think your movie is. It's like, is there
a market for it? If there are people going to buy it, are they going to pick it up? You know, it's very eye opening in the way of, you are not going to know exactly what. That's why a distributor doesn't know what's going to work. That's why they pick up so many movies, because they don't realize
they're not giving MGs unless there's
Burt
Reynolds on it or somebody big.
They don't know what's going to hit, and that's why, you know, when a buyer walks in, and that's the biggest thing too. It's having relationships with the buyers already built. You know what I mean? So if you don't have these relationships with the buyers, you're walking in kind of cold, because now they're just looking at your product. And they really don't give a shit about you. It's more about the product anyways. If you have that warmth within, they already know you, you can do some deals. You know what I mean? So it was more of us just jumping in head first and seeing what we find. And, you know, there's no right way, I feel like, to do things. You just got to do what works for you. And that's what we did, and learned a lot. Jason was really cool. Got to meet him. Tom Malloy, who was kind of I feel like a mentor to me, because I read his book years ago, Bankrolled, which was really good. And Dove, I got to meet Dove Simmons. So
that was the best.
Three mentors that before we were doing it full time, to where we actually got to meet these guys, and you're respected because you're going in as a distributor, you're going in as an exhibitor.
Well,
they know you spent money.
Oh yeah, you walk in and just try to get a free pass. It's like, get out of here, dude. Like, you didn't put no money up, you didn't put time up. Like, get out of here. You spent big money to be there. Like, okay, people take you more serious. And that's the key. Like, go all in and show people, like, I'm serious. Even if it's putting up money, even if it's putting in, like, tons of free time, you know. That's what I did when I first started doing video. I did a lot of cheap stuff, a lot of free stuff. I'll still do free stuff. And that's what it's about. It's about giving and doing and being out there.
That's the big thing too, is what's the win-win? Like, finding the win-win within a situation. Like, how can this person get what they want and we get what we want, and we all work together? Yeah,
the win-wins in life, right? The win-wins in life.
Everybody's trying to take a lot of times too. So it's like, no, how can we both win? You know?
Yeah. No, I'm sorry. Did I just cut you off, Jake?
No, you're good.
No, you're fine. I was just seeing if you had anything else to add to that.
No, I know what you mean, because sometimes especially when I do this like podcast, sometimes I talk to people and they want to pitch to come on the podcast, and it's almost like, well, what can I do for them? And I'm like, well, I mean, come on, they don't even know my name. Then my name's in the freaking title of the podcast. Like, how the hell do you not know my name is Dave? You know what I mean? And it's like, they'll write, they won't even say like, hey or hello, or even they'll just say like, yo, I'm the blah blah blah, blah. And I'm like, you didn't even say like, hey, I enjoy the show, or hey, Dave, this is why I want to come on. It's just like, just let me bombard you with how cool I am, Dave, and so that I will be like, oh, please come on, please, Jesus, come on. I mean, it's just, you know what I mean? It's just like, you have to be a lot more, you know what I mean? Like we just said, the win-win, because I mean, this is a win-win, this podcast, because you get something, I get something, we both win, and the listeners win too. So, you know, it's not this whole one-sided thing where it's like, what's in it for me, and, you know, it doesn't matter if you get something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree, dude. You gotta both work together. It's just working together, man. It's just ultimately what it's always been about and will be about, I feel.
Yeah, especially because, I mean, this is networking, you know? People hear you on the podcast, they reach out. It happens all the time. And I always encourage people, when listeners want to talk to a specific guest, tweet them and tell them something about the episode. Send them an email. Some people give out their emails. Send them a LinkedIn message, or whatever the hell, Facebook, whatever social media channels they're on, and just say, hey, you know, I enjoyed the podcast, and here's why, and here's what I got from it. Not just like, you know, hey, listen, can you give me this or that? I had on Cassian Ilvez, I always butcher his name, but who is one of the top producers in the world. He's done Dallas Buyers Club. He just did Mudbound, which is up for a ton of awards, and it's on Netflix. And when I had him on, people were asking like, "Hey, could you like introduce us to Cassian?" I'm like, I don't even know who the hell you are, so how would I possibly do this?
You know, it's funny because we get that all the time, where people are just like, hey, can you do this? Could you do that? It's like, hold on a second. First of all, the first thing you got to learn when you're pitching somebody is you got to get to know them for a little second. You got to have an understanding of who they are. There's no reason for somebody else to give up their time unless you find out what the person's looking for. You know, do they? You know,
and this is why we share a lot of things about business and sales, because that is sales. A good book recommendation for that is How to Win Friends and Influence People. It's about, focus on what, who the person is, and don't try to take so much. That's all it is.
It's like this too. Like, you're hanging out, you meet this girl, and the first thing that comes out of your mouth is like, "Hey, will you go home and sleep with me?" You know what I'm saying? Like, that's not how it works. You know what I'm saying? You gotta build a little bit of a relationship.
Every big connection that we've made and that worked out good, we took years building slowly, and it's always, what can I do for you? How can I help you? And from there, it led to, different things, and we're still building relationships, and you need to ask them what you can do for them. That's what I believe.
Yeah, it's like I always say when you're going to make a connection, offer value, kill with kindness, and always be professional. And that first one is offer value, which is what can you do for them. And whether it's promotion on social media, like just retweeting something, you know what I mean, or even something similar, like buying, saying, "Hey, look, the movie's coming out. Maybe I'll pick up a copy of it, or maybe I'll buy a shirt." Or again, a retweet costs nothing, right? So it's stuff like that. You're actually building a rapport with that person, and when you're doing face-to-face meetings at like a networking event, that's the first thing you want to do is you want to say, you talk about their stuff. If you're introduced, you know what I mean? Especially if you're going to ask that person for something. And when I see people just go up and it's like, "Hey, it's the Jalbert Brothers. Hey guys, listen, I'm going to be making a movie soon. And, why don't you guys come on board and this and that?" And you're like, "Well, wait a minute. We don't know who the hell you are." You know what I mean? Or asking you for locations or whatever.
And then you go, "Well, what, are you fully funded?" And they're like, "Well, no, that's why we came to you." And it's like, dude,
but
first of all, give us a win-win. If you want us to produce your movie, show the cash. Say, "Hey, I've got $50,000. I want to work with you guys on a movie. Would you produce it?" Then you might have some wiggle room or something to work with where we can go, "Well, what are you trying to do? And maybe we can help you out because, it's $50,000, it depends on your script." You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah, and that's also happened to me too, by the way, is the whole, "Hey, we want to get this funded." And I go, "Okay, well, that there has to be something in it for me now, because if I'm going to go and pitch your movie and look for funds and all this other stuff, what's the deal here?" And, and the cherry on top of this is the fact that I'll tell you a little story. Is one time I actually had a person come on who I actually know. We met years ago, and he wanted to come on the podcast to talk about his latest project, and then wanted me to come on board as a producer and give him my email list and do all this other stuff. And when I said, well, what's the contract for this? And he actually said to me, you want to get paid for that?" I'm like, yeah, I want to have something involved in this. I don't want. This isn't a charity case.
Yeah, man, I agree 100% with you, man.
So what was, as we talk about sort of this crazy stories and stuff, what were some of the crazy stories you guys have about just being pitched?
I haven't had anything too crazy pitched-wise. I mean, I've had people, that pitch you, but it's just the way they go about it is just totally off. One of the ways that I've pitched and that's worked, the Burt Reynolds movie that I was able to be a part of as a first AD and producer, like that connection took me 2 years before I was able to work with that person. And it was more or less of those little things that you do in the beginning,
it's slow baby steps. I'd rather tell them, what I think, worked for us than tell them what not to do. So yeah, I PA'd on a set, and you get a call sheet, and, I had bigger dreams of doing bigger things. So I took the call sheet because there's big producers and stuff on there. And I held on to that call sheet and found out who the producers were, and just, let my presence be known. Cool movie. You did a great job. Everything was awesome. It was nice meeting you. That was it. I think like a year later, we end up going to the premiere of the movie and saying, "Oh, hey, I'm Jake and this is Brian. Great movie. You did a great job on this." And then another, 6 months go by and, hey, can you check, take a look at my trailer. I just need some expert advice. You did a great job on your last film. It's just a minute. And then, boom, they give you some advice. And it's just slowly building over time, And show them that you, in the meantime, actually do projects. But still keep, it's doing the projects and keep moving forward. But slowly, every now and then reach out and say, hi, how you been, and stuff like that. There's nothing wrong with that. But to just come off with the ass right away, it's not going to – I don't think it'll work unless you've already got, unless you're somebody.
It's like Gary Vee says, you got to do the it's jab, 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 right hook. And those jabs are give, and the right hook's an ask.
That's the new schooling, man. I learned everything from just watching videos like that. Like
we love guys like that.
Because it's like, I never liked reading so much, and I've read books. And it's funny, I've read more books when I was out of school than when I did when I was in school. And now I love podcasts. I love videos, Grant and all these guys, because there's something that they're doing that led to their success. And if you can read between the lines, and not so much what they're saying, but what are they doing, and then read between the lines of what they're saying, you can really become successful by following those guides, as far as those guys are your mentors now,
Yeah, mentors through books, and mentors through podcasts, mentors through videos. It's a wide world now, right?
Yep. I love it, man. And that's what's great about it, because I got people hitting me up from Nigeria and shit. That's crazy to even think of. We had these guys, because we're down to earth guys, and we had these guys call us from Nigeria, FaceTime us, and they're like, I'm like, holy, hey, what's up, man? They're like, oh, we're from Nigeria. I'm like, holy shit. And we're talking a little bit, and they were just calling because I think they seen our lives, and they wanted, they want to talk to us on FaceTime. And it's it's almost get to the point, because they're just oh, how's filming? And it's well, you calling about something, or you just calling to chat, it's finding out. But it's just so cool that we can have people in all these different countries that we're talking to, just from our live video. We have a guy, Anthony, who will probably listen to this, our buddy Anthony, who we met through Facebook Live, and he lives in Australia, and he's doing movies out there, and he loves the content, and we go back and forth, and his buddies were at the AFM, and we were hanging out with his buddies. We have a video, one of our live videos. They're from Australia, and it's wow, that's, to me, that's awesome, and that's just so different.
So we never had to leave the house to network, So when we went to the AFM, we got noticed about by a handful of people that seen our lives, because the Fugal Filmmakers is a big group.
And people are actually coming in our booth hey, where's the Jalbert Brothers? And we're we don't even know them. And it's it's cool to be able to have that already established relationship in a way to where they feel like they know us, and it's oh, that's so cool. You know what I mean?
And that's where the new future of everything is going. You don't have to go out and network and fly around. You can actually just do it over online, which is so great, and that's what all these guys are teaching and actually just doing,
When you mentioned that the Nigerians who called you, it reminds me, because sometimes when I used to get people coming up to me.
You too?
No, they didn't call me. The only Nigerians that contact me are usually those princes who want money. That I have to send them money. But when people usually contact me, they usually want to just go grab coffee somewhere. And about a year or two ago, I actually just fully stopped it. So if I don't know you and you say, hey, Dave, can we go grab coffee? The answer is 99.9% of the time going to be no. The reason being, it really becomes what can I do for them? And I understand that, I do this podcast, and I've done some really cool things. I've worked with M. Night Shyamalan's producer. I did my own TV pilot. I've done this, that, and the other thing. But at the end of the day, though, it's I get it. Trust me, too. You feel like you have so many options. You get overwhelmed sometimes. But whenever I go to those things, it always feels like, what can I do for them? and it's always like they want to pick my brain about stuff, and then they go to this and that, and then they get all downtrodden, and I go, I just don't. This is why I always have to have screeners of people. You know what I mean? Like I have to be if you come recommended or something else, I'll talk to you on the phone. But the whole coffee thing in general, I'm not traveling 30 minutes, up to Philly, up to north or whatever Philly, just to grab coffee with somebody. You know what I mean? I'd rather just do a Skype chat for 5 minutes. You know what I mean?
Right, and they don't know. They're in the weeds. They don't see it. So it's good that people actually listen to this stuff and trying to get the knowledge to become better. And that's why we try to preach a lot of this different stuff in marketing and sales and really trying to expand filmmaking and show people like you got to open your eyes a little bit further than just filmmaking, because that's where the win, I believe, is being able to communicate, period. Communication.
Because, dude, like, I've made these mistakes. Like, I've went up to people and straight for the ass. Like, and it's learning by, like, going, yeah, that didn't work out good, and dissecting, why did that work out good? Maybe because I'm too blunt, I came off that way. So you got to have an understanding of that. And I think that's how we try to talk is like, hey, this is what we've done. This is what we've learned. Hopefully it works for you. Some of it may not. Some of it may. And, have at it. Like, let's work together. Let's make some fucking magic. Like, let's really make some magic to where the new generation has their voice, and they do through Facebook and, like, podcasts and all this shit.
So I would say a good way to just approach anybody, approach yourself, I'm sure, approach us, is just like, hey, I heard your podcast. Awesome. Man, the advice was absolutely amazing. If you thought it was amazing, thank you for that. And that's it. And leave it, leave it at that. At least for, a couple weeks or whatever. Let it marinate. Follow them. Find out what their interest and what they like and what's the win for them.
Yeah. Follow up is key too. So if you do reach out to somebody, don't be discouraged if they don't get back to you right away. Like I've been contacting this one producer over and over again, every couple of months just to build that connection. And I think that's key is just stay present, and when it works out, it will eventually if you stay present enough, because most people want to see if you're willing to put in the work, I feel, because they had to put in the work. They're not just going to give you their whole email list or their whole world because you're asking for it. It's like, well, dude, like I've spent like 8 years of my life building this. Like I can't just give you the keys to my kingdom or to my building. Like I got to get to know you a little bit, trust you. Maybe we work together a little bit, and then now, yeah, this guy's cool. I can trust him with my keys. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I see exactly what you mean. And it's all about building those relationships, and also building them. Just building the relationships. Period. You know what I mean? And just. You want to sort of build it in the right way, and again, I mean, I've done the same thing too. I've been there where I've just asked way too early, and because you jump the gun, you're like, oh crap, I'm never going to see this person again. What should I say? I don't know. Read my screenplay. So you're gonna go shit. And so if everyone listening, if you took any advice from either Jake, Brian, or myself, please just tweet us and let us know. And so, I mean, guys, we've been talking for about 55 minutes or so now. So just in closing, is there anything you want to say, Brian and Jake, to sort of put a period at the end of this whole conversation?
Go make something.
Just make your film. Just make it. No, just man, what we're doing, man, trial and error, dude. We go do something, and you can call it a fail. You can call it we tried, and then you try something else. We're gonna put out this haunted tour show. Will it be a super success? I don't know. We're gonna do our best, right? We're gonna put everything we have into it and make it happen. If it doesn't do very well, fine. Figure this out. We'll figure that out. So the key is just figuring it out along the way, and it'll lead you to the places you probably didn't expect you might be. I never, could never speak in front of people, and, but more you do it, it's weird, the more you do it, the better you get at it. And I've gotten a lot better, actually. I can go in front of a crowd now and actually, speak. I still turn super red. I'm red right now. It's just like, speaking. But you become better as you do. So that's why just make your first film. If you're a first-time filmmaker, just go make something, and then reach out to us and say, hey, guys, I heard your podcast. Great job. and then build that connection with us because we want to get to know you guys, and send us your film if you have it, and don't go straight to the send though. Talk to us a little bit and get to know me, and then I would love to look at your stuff. But don't just send it because I don't know you and that's weird and I don't know what I'm looking at. So
unless you're asked to send it, there's times where we put out calls for scripts or whatever we're looking for on our Facebook page and things like that. So that's when you want to send it. It's knowing when to send it, when the win-win is in place. Hey guys, I'm looking for a one location script. Oh, I got one. Oh, really? Okay, send it on over. Or hey guys, I got a movie that's finished. I'd love for you guys to take a look at it. Maybe you can distribute it. Okay, cool. Let me look at it. Take a look at it. Yeah, I love this. Let's distribute it. Hey guys, I got a movie. I've got some money. I want to pay you guys for your time. Put you on as producers and hire you through your production company. Awesome. Let's do it. Maybe we can come on and work out a deal to where we distribute it. So it's finding out what they're looking for, going in for the ask at the right time, and staying present with the follow-up.
Yeah, you have to treat everything like a skill. That's something I've learned too, is you have to treat everything like a skill. Speaking in public is a skill. Doing all sorts, being good at social media is a skill. All the different skills on the film set, writing's a skill, pitching's a skill. The more I've learned about this stuff, the more I realized it's all about, if you treat everything like a skill, and you have to get good at it, it kind of all sort of falls into place. You know what I mean? Like you have to do it to get good at it, and you just have to do it, which is, you have to have action, right? Yeah. At the end of the day, everything always involves action, just like a character in a screenplay. Nobody likes a passive protagonist.
No,
exactly. It's all about execution, man. Execute.
If you search hard enough, you'll find what you're looking for. It's just you got to search, really, really hard,
and keep searching. Because like Sean Baker, it took him, 15, 20 years, I think he said?
Yep.
Exactly. And he wasn't – so now people think, oh, this Sean Baker guy made it overnight. Well, dude, you don't know he's been doing it for 15, 20 years. But you may end up like Robert Rodriguez, who first feature got some buzz going. You just never know. That's why we say just start doing something and be creative.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, that's excellent, guys. And it's always good to keep things like that into perspective, because there is no overnight successes. That's the number one rule. There is no overnight successes.
What are you talking about, man?
Hey, guys, where can people find you at online?
We stay on Facebook at Jalbert Brothers and Instagram, man. Right now, we have a YouTube, but we're more, Facebook and Instagram. Definitely follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Jalbert Brothers. JALBRT.
Yeah, and then they can check us out at jalbertbrothers.com too, and then it has all the social media sites from there as well.
And I will link to all of those social media channels in the show notes at davebullis.com. Twitter, it's at Dave_Bullis, and the podcast is at DB Podcast. We're getting really more into Instagram too, by the way, which I'll talk to you guys after this. I had a podcast Instagram, and I didn't check it for a while, and I come back to it, and it's way more popular than the Instagram that I actually used like most of the time. I'm like, well, there you go. So now I'm gonna swap them. But yeah, I've learned that Instagram is really, really good too. Twitter's my number one tool for networking, but Instagram's getting up there too. And but that's a whole nother thing. Guys, Jake, Brian, I want to say thank you so much for coming on.
Hey, thank you, Dave, man.
Thanks for having us, brother. Appreciate the time.
Yeah.
Find Dave at davebullis.com. Please make sure to subscribe and share the podcast.